Andy van der Meyde dragged 15-year-olds to strip clubs, had naked scraps with David Moyes, and crammed 2 horses into the backseat of his BMW. From affairs with strippers to dog turds to the face, this is the story of a wonder kid gone wild. Welcome back to The Upshot. I am Jack Rivlin. Zach Sweeney-Lynch is here.
Hello, Jack.
Hello. And joining us for the first time ever on this famous sofa, we are joined by Mr. George Wilde.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's
Welcome.
great to be here.
It's very great to have you here.
Yeah.
So listeners probably won't know, George is the newest recruit at Upshot Towers, member of staff. He is writing the newsletter, our semi-legendary newsletter, which summarises the funniest stories in sport this week. You can actually sign up at upshot.email.
Please do. Yeah, you can indeed. First time on the pod. I heard you were doing Andy van der Meyde and I insisted.
The great Andy van der Meyde.
You're a big Van der Meyde head. I don't want Maradona. I don't want George Best. Give me Andy.
Give me Shandy Andy.
Give me Shandy
Let's all be
Andy.
honest. Did you remember who he was?
I had heard the name.
So it wasn't like a total, the name means nothing to me.
No, I'd heard the name. But then there's a chance I just heard you say it a couple of weeks ago.
Seen it on a list.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I do have a vague memory of him from that period. But then you look at his stats, it's like he only actually played for Everton about 20 times in like 4 seasons. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so
I'm not sure if I'm just getting him mixed up with like Van der Vaart and
You don't recall
insert Dutch player.
You don't remember him from his time in the Ajax Academy?
Oh, well, yeah, there was that.
that famous spell.
His famous loan spell at FC 20.
We probably should explain who he is, though. So he was a sort of wonder kid, might be stretching it, but he was a hot prospect in Dutch football at Ajax. It all looked quite good. He went to Inter Milan, then he came to Everton, which is how we all possibly remember
know
him.
and love him.
Yeah, and just had like the most mental time. Like that intro, I don't think I've ever crammed in so many examples of. I mean, admittedly, one of them was a dog turd to the face. That's new stuff. But a lot went on in his few years on Merseyside.
Yeah.
So this is more about off-field exploits, I would say.
Yeah, his
Wait, what?
career-
No, sorry. I didn't sign up for that.
There is a famous cross that we'll get onto. Really famous cross.
It's one of the unexpected, like incredibly wild episodes, I think.
Yeah, this is one of, like, obviously, we've planned it, and this is, in terms of the stories, this is right up there for me. So I think we should actually just get into it.
Let's do it,
Zach,
yeah.
do you want to take us back to wherever the fuck the story starts?
So our story begins on the winding streets of Arnhem, which is a small city a bit south of Amsterdam. And Andy was a pretty rough upbringing. His dad was a compulsive gambler and sort of petty criminal, racked up big debts. Andy's autobiography begins with him in bed and the police raid his house in the middle of the night looking for his dad. He ends up falling in with some sort of local troublemakers, and one time him and some other kids smash in the window of a local shop with fireworks, and they send Andy in through the broken window because he's the smallest one. It's a sports shop, and he nicks a load of boxing gloves for them all, and comes out and like distributes all these gloves, and all of the older kids just leg it, and he's left with nothing.
Nothing.
All of the older kids punching him.
Yeah.
It's quite Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson used to do similar because he was small. It was used for
Yeah,
burglaries.
yeah.
Is fireworks the most efficient way to break a window?
It's probably the most entertaining.
Yeah, they probably
It's
bounce
also,
back.
it's the sort of thing you'd think is a great idea when you're sort of 10,
Like a
11.
bank job.
Yeah, blast it open. Another story, he gets hold of a fake gun and points it at a bus driver as it's driving past. The bus driver calls the police, and then the cops turn up at his house, and his mum covers for him. She has this like lighter that's in the shape of a gun at home, and she tells them it was that, so the police go away.
Oh, so it was actually a fake gun.
I think so. I don't think it was the lighter. His older sister as well looks out for him quite a lot. She sounds pretty hard. So there's this story, a boy flashes her one time, and she grabs his face and smashes it into a dog turd on the floor, like smears it into his face.
Jesus.
That will teach you.
Yeah, well,
I actually think all flashes should be punished in that fashion.
yeah, it's
And
quite-
also through the proper channels.
And he says that after that,
It's getting dangerously close to
we
your
getting-
Daily Mail paedophile.
And, you know, cut their cocks off.
Just doing sort of mob justice now.
Oh, a dog turd to the
Yeah.
face is quite a good deterrent, I
Yeah.
think. Certainly at that
for
age.
flashing, yeah.
Yeah.
Andy says that nobody bothered the family after that.
There you go.
Yeah. Learned his lesson. So he starts out playing for a local team in Arnhem, and he's a bit of a prodigy. He gets scouted for Ajax when he's 10 and works his way through the youth ranks. Eventually graduates to the first team, where he's managed by another Everton legend, sort of, Ronald Koeman.
Okay.
It's actually a really good Ajax team then. So they had Van der Vaart, Wesley Sneijder, Ibrahimovic, Christian Chivu, the Romanian defender.
Yeah, I think
You
I
will, of
remember.
course. Sort of in the Andy van der Meyde category.
Not Shivu, not Shivers.
Shivers. Yeah, Shivers.
And so
I
they're
think he
all-
was pretty good. He played
they're-
for Inter Milan as well later.
Are they all quite young at that point?
Yeah, it's a very young team. And even among these young prodigies, Andy has a reputation for some unsavoury antics. So apparently he was known for getting his cock out on the team bus
Right.
and resting it on the table when they were on their way to matches.
I think it's a dog turd to the face for getting
It
knocked
is,
out of the team
yeah.
bus, isn't it? So you've not learned anything.
Well, he does actually get his comeuppance for another incident. So this is a slightly weird story that Andy told a few years later. He said, "I used to sit next to Zlatan on the bus when we were at Ajax. One time when he was sleeping, I got gay tendencies and I just kissed him on the mouth. Seconds later, I got a few punches thrown at me."
Yeah, you can't be doing that.
Yeah,
That feels like quite a
bit of a-
repressed way of just saying I'm gay or maybe
yeah. It's,
bisexual.
it's not the most PC way of
Gay
describing gay
tendencies.
tendencies.
But is he
Like,
saying it was a genuine lust thing, or is he just being like, "Oh, I was being gay"? Like
I'm
a
not.
schoolboy.
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a weird thing.
Okay.
Quite a brave move to Zlatan.
Yeah, of
as
all
well.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But despite these slightly weird vibes in the dressing room, Koeman's first year in charge at Ajax is a massive success. Ajax win the double. Andy has a great season. Also gets called up for the Netherlands for the first time and scores on his debut against the USA. So at this point, he's kind of got the world at his feet. He's
You sure about that?
well, you know, he's
the-
won the Eredivisie, the KNVB Cup.
Has he actually won the double?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they,
Oh,
Ajax
sorry, I
won the
missed
double that season.
Was he playing
He
a
was
lot?
playing quite a lot, yeah.
He's got the Netherlands at his feet.
Yeah.
It's probably.
So yeah, he's part of this young Ajax team that, you know, everybody's thinking that they've got the next few seasons, they're just going to dominate Dutch football. Andy's going to be the star of the team alongside possibly some bigger names. But anyway, it is a bit of a surprise in summer 2003 when Andy is called into the Ajax office and told that he's being sold to Inter Milan. So he didn't want to go, but Ajax had already agreed this £4 million deal for him, so he didn't really have that much of a choice. It actually turned out that the Inter manager, which is an Argentinian guy called Hector Cooper, didn't particularly want Andy either. So Inter was one of these clubs where the sporting director just chose all the signings. And on Andy's first day of training at Inter, he's feeling a bit nervous and he goes up to introduce himself to the new manager and goes over and like tries to shake his hand and says hello. And Hector just turns around and is like, "Who the fuck are you?"
God. Imagine how dispiriting that is. He like moved country
Yeah.
to be
Sorry,
there.
this guy didn't know
He
Andy
didn't know.
van
He
der
didn't.
Meyde
He didn't.
with the world at his feet. Andy Van,
Do you not see my
prospect.
goal
Yeah, but-
against the USA?
Is he having a laugh?
You've seen my famous cross against FC Twente.
Maybe he thought he was getting Christian Chivu. That is about as shit as your first day at work can get. Surely you go in, try and introduce yourself to the boss, and he asks, "Who the fuck are you?"
Yeah.
That is how you greeted me, weirdly.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so it was a bit of a underwhelming start to his Inter career. But he's enjoying the footballer lifestyle in Milan. So he moves into this big house near Lake Como, a bit north of the city. It's where all of the Inter and AC Milan wonder kids live. And even in that environment, Andy soon makes a name for himself in the neighbourhood. So his wife Diana was a big animal lover, and she insists that they bring their 4 dogs and their 2 cats with them from Amsterdam.
It's too many
And
dogs.
for it's quite a lot. It does get a lot worse. So, with a bit more space at their house, Diana also decides that it's time to get some horses.
Sure.
So they arrange to buy these 2 Falabella horses, which are a sort of miniature breed of horses.
Like a Shetland pony.
A bit like a Shetland pony. We're looking at a picture of them now.
Dead cute.
Yeah, lovely.
They are
Yeah.
cute.
Very
Quite,
cuddly.
yeah. But still, they're horses.
Yep.
Decent
I'm thinking
size.
I could get one of them in my flat, to be honest. It is
Well, Andy would probably agree with you. So they basically, there's been some kind of miscommunication. They've been chatting to this guy who's selling them the horses, and they think that when they go to pick them up, the horses are going to be loaded onto the back of a trailer. So Andy drives his BMW up there to collect the horses, gets there, no trailer, horses just in the field. And he basically can't be asked to go back and sort out a trailer. So him and Diana decide instead to just cram these two miniature horses onto the back seat of their BMW. So it's a X5 BMW. So like
Okay,
one
yeah.
of the like slightly larger ones.
A small 4x4.
A small 4x4, but still, it's no place for 2 horses.
For a horse. No place for one horse.
He says that on the drive back, they open the window so that they can, so the horses can stick their heads out the window.
motorway. Can you imagine going past?
Yeah. But they get them back though, where they are introduced to the family's cat, who goes by the name of Mafia. One of their 2 cats. Mafia apparently always ran away. They always having trouble with him. So they'd end up wandering around the local town shouting Mafia, looking for this cat, which in a small Italian town doesn't go down too well.
Was the cat already called Mafia in Amsterdam, or
Must be.
It must have been, yeah.
Although I wouldn't put
Yeah.
it past them just landing in Italy and being like, yeah, let's give it an Italian name.
It's actually far from the worst name in the family. So Andy has 2 kids at this point. Isabella, normal name, and his other daughter, Purple.
purple?
Purple.
Purple.
It's just purple.
Good.
Purple.
The colour.
Purple van der Meyde.
With the surname, I kind of...
Got a ring to it.
I guess,
Yeah.
so they've chosen it in English, so I guess if you're not an
I guess if
English
you're not a native speaker,
it's like
it's-
calling your kid like Azul or like
Mm,
Blanca, which people do. Bianca, doesn't that just mean white?
does
I
it?
don't know.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think maybe it does. But purple.
Purple.
And Violet. Violet's a name.
I
That
guess
is-
Violet
yeah.
is a name.
Suppose
That
so.
was maybe the
So is
I
inspiration.
think it was
Purple,
a translation.
Yeah, I think they were going for Violet. Little baby magenta. Purple, I think, is the worst name for a child we've heard on this pod.
Yeah.
What are the other contenders?
Ian.
Ian.
Yeah, I mean,
Ian is-
hang on.
Ian is
Ian's a
up
normal
there.
name, but Brazilian footballer Hulk has a child called Ian, which I just think is funny.
Yeah.
The context makes it funnier.
Isn't the other one
Little-
called Tiago as
Yeah,
well?
Tiago, there's
And-
another like Brazilian name, and then little Ian.
Little
Hulk.
baby Ian.
Ian Hulk.
Mm.
But purple is straight up bad, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, with this big house, young kids with odd names, and a swiftly growing menagerie of animals, Andy and Diana decide to get in a bit of help around the house. So, in fact, they decide to move in an entire Italian family to live with them. So, husband, wife, 2 kids all move into this house. The wife sort of looks after the kids, does a bit of housework, maybe some gardening. Dad is a chef for the family. And the 2 families become really close. So they spend a lot of time together there. They're sharing a house. Andy takes a real shine to their eldest son, Adriano. So he takes him into Inter to meet the players. They get on like a house on fire. Actually, you're probably wondering how it's going at Inter. Unsurprisingly, considering the manager doesn't even know who he is, Andy doesn't play much. Probably has to go in and explain. It's like, yeah, I play on the right wing. Like,
Yeah. We've had this conversation 5 times. You never remember me.
he's like, Alan, is it?
Sorry, who the fuck are you again?
You're the horse guy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, he seems quite memorable. to be
Yeah.
fair. I'm
Yeah.
the guy with the horses who's always got his cock out.
Yeah.
Come on. What more do I have to do?
Well, yeah, it doesn't really work. So his first season he plays 14 times, similar in his second, and he starts getting pretty pissed off about this. He's not really motivated. He's going out partying quite a lot. But despite that, he's still a stalwart in the Netherlands team. So they get to Euro 2004, get all the way to the semi-finals, plays 4 matches in that tournament, but gets dropped for the semi-final when they lose to Portugal. But that's kind of it, really.
Yeah.
In
That's the
Italy
tournament
for them.
Greece one. I guess
Greece
that's
won it.
Rooney's sort of international.
Yeah.
Two great wonder kids. Not the only wonder kid announcing himself. Yeah. And actually, Andy's performances at the Euros catch the eyes of some major European clubs, which is perfect because Inter are pretty keen to ditch him. And first up, Monaco come knocking. And that's quite an appealing move for Andy.
Lovely old job.
Tax-free by the sea. And he actually flies there. He does the medical, agrees personal terms and everything. It's all about to be done. But there's one sticking point, which is that Diana will not leave her animals behind. She wants a house where the animals can fit.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever been to Monaco. It's quite densely packed. There's no big gardens for...
They can't just leave him in the car, no?
No, you can't. It's only in the X5 with the aircon on. And by this point, they've got 30 animals in their collection, including some zebra.
Jesus. Okay.
So it's not, we're not just talking about Mafia the cat and a couple of mastiffs now. Like it's out of hand. Diana's basically sort of addicted to collecting animals, and she will not move unless they can have a massive garden with like a stable for the zebras.
Is that legal having zebra?
Yeah, I don't know how sort of Tiger King. I don't know what the licensing is, but this is a sticking point for her. They find a house that's like in France. Not in Monaco.
Okay.
But then you lose the tax benefits. So don't worry, I'm not going to make this about the tax code. Anyway, so Andy says, I ended up walking away from a guaranteed 6 million euros a year because my wife could not live without her animals in the garden. You can really see the resentment in that quote, can't you? I would say from this point onwards, having read his book, which by the way is excellent, it is only available in Dutch, but we got it translated. From this point onwards, he basically just hates Diana and her fucking animals. He says, like, can we not just have the zebras somewhere separate in France and we'll go every weekend? She's like, nope. I want them on site. You can see why he's annoyed. So the deal falls through, but fortunately, there is another buyer waiting in the wings. David Moyes' Everton, this is sort of
they were pretty good.
They were like playing the Champions League some seasons. They're finishing 4th.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's cruel to keep zebra in a flat in Monaco, but a nice 2 up, 2 down in Walton. Get him in.
Nothing wrong with that. In the rain. Apparently Diana was like, I'm really not up for moving from like sunny Como to rainy Liverpool. But Liverpool are like, we could definitely find you a space, in the Wirral or something where you've got plenty of room for zebra to graze. Your wildebeest will be fine on the banks of the Mersey. So he's like, look, we're doing this. It's a big move. And they're paying him 30 grand a week, so double what he's getting it into. And so it's happening. So the plan is Andy will go ahead on his own.
Most of that 30k a week is just going on feed, presumably.
Anyway, so he goes ahead on his own, and then the plan is like they'll all follow on Diana and the fucking animals in their crate, and then it'll all be good. So he rocks up. You're probably wondering, like, on day one, when you've moved to a cultural capital like Liverpool, what do you do first? You're spoiled for choice, Is it the Tate? Is it the Albert Docks? Maybe go and see John Lennon's childhood home. This is how Andy describes it in his book. This is his first day. First stop was the News Bar, a popular place in Liverpool. After a couple of hours of alcohol, I drove to the nearest strip club. Getting drunk in a strip club in the middle of Liverpool was not very smart, but I had a strong longing for naked women.
How long's he been away from the family at this point?
3 hours, I think. Like, how long's a Ryanair
just
flight?
Off the plane, yeah.
He also buys a Ferrari that day as well. So literally day one.
Wow. Fair play.
And then describing the strip club visit, he says, it was a chaotic scene and I found myself doing things I regretted later.
That is terrifyingly ominous.
Yeah, that can only really mean one thing.
Did he get his cock out on the table again?
Yeah, certainly in a back room.
That is not the sort of thing Andy would regret.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like, what did you fucking do, mate, to regret? So I think he's sort of, spending quite a lot of time at News Bar.
Sure.
And you might be worried for Andy that it's maybe a bit of a lonely life, just like crawling around in your Ferrari and then getting lap dances, like does he not want a companion, someone who properly understands him? But fortunately, Andy is not alone because he's got 14-year-old Adriano with him. So, remember, Adriano is the son of his sort of au pair and chef couple who live with them. And basically, Andy and Adriano flew ahead. It was basically decided there was no point in Adriano starting a new school year in Italy.
Sure, no.
What was the point in that? So he might as well come ahead with Andy in the summer, get used to Liverpool, and then he can start
What
school.
could go wrong?
Yeah, what could go
Get
wrong?
lessons in the school of life from Andy van der Meyde.
And boy, does he. So it's just Andy and Adriano in Liverpool. Adriano's younger sister and the parents are all back with the animals in Como. And apparently Andy describes in his book, he says, we were actually inseparable. We shared a hotel room, slept in the same room, and they spent all their time exploring the city, shopping, eating at top restaurants.
Sounds quite wholesome.
Yeah, it was
on the surface.
I think
I don't like the hotel room.
Yeah, hotel room with the 14.
No, Andy says it was just David Moyes apparently was really accommodating and was like, let's just give him an all access pass so he can come to the training ground, meet the players. So Adriano's
David Moyes is probably thinking, he's like how managers always want their players to settle down with wife and kids really young so that they're not out partying. He's probably like I'll give him, if he's got a 14-year-old to take around, he's just gonna take him to Legoland.
Yeah, perfect.
You just said Andy said it was really sweet and wholesome. Do we know what Adriano thinks? Andy would say it was wholesome. I feel like he could have. He's on 30k a week. He could have got 2 hotel rooms.
Well, yeah, good point. Yeah, but maybe Adriano was homesick and he was sort of looking after him.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
he didn't have to come.
Could have stayed at home.
Didn't have to be prized away from his family.
Anyway, that does all sound very nice until Adriano's 15th birthday.
Right.
This is how Andy describes it in his book. It was Adriano's 15th birthday, and we decided to go to a strip club. Adriano had been bugging me about going out, and even though he was only 15, I thought it would be a laugh.
when he's bugging him to go out, is it he wants to take him to the Hard Rock Cafe and go bowling?
Take me out.
I want to go laser tag.
And he's like, well, I know where to fucking take you, strip club. And so they basically cruise around the city in Andy's Ferrari for a bit. And then where else? They go to News Bar for drinks, for a sharpener. And then
Adriano, have you ever wanted to meet a bowler and do a kiss and tell story to the sun?
You can imagine him just introducing him to all these people, and everyone's like, how old is this kid? How's he getting in?
Presumably he's having a pint of cider and a full roast dinner.
Yeah, as a 15-year-old getting served. And then Andy decides it's time for Adriano to visit the strip club. And he says, Adriano had the night of his life. I had him photographed with 6 naked women and he even got a Polaroid printout as a souvenir. It was past midnight and time to head home. To my great regret, I let Adriano take the wheel of my Ferrari. We were both drunk, but he drove us safely home. What the fuck are you doing? He's 15. At 15 years old, at the wheel of a Ferrari, having just been in a strip club getting hammered.
Imagine when he goes back and meets his new classmates in September.
What did you do over the summer? I went to this camp. There was zip wires. And it's yeah, that sounds shit. You ever heard of News Bar?
Did it get back to Adriano's parents? What was going on?
Sorry, the quote continues. Yeah, he says, later, Adriano showed the Polaroid to his father. He laughed, but he seemed uncomfortable about it.
Meanwhile, Adriano's sister's just presumably up at 5, feeding the zebra. Back-breaking work.
Doing a maths revision. Also, it's this idea of him going on ahead with Andy. I guess from their perspective, they were the Andy we know is a family man who keeps all these animals and he's a top athlete who's in training. It'll probably be good for Adriano to go with him and he'll do fitness stuff. It'll be an adventure. They're definitely not thinking he'll be drunk driving a Ferrari back from the strip club.
That's great.
You might be thinking also this is a one-off error in judgment. He obviously woke up in the morning and was like, what the fuck was I doing letting that kid drive and taking him to this place? But actually they go again. So Andy says in his book, I began to crave naked women. We ended up at a strip club and I treated Adriano to his first lap dance. So it's going up a notch. Now he's getting private dances. He picked a beautiful brunette. I was treated to a great view of her ass. And from that point on, I was sure I wanted to sleep with her. Her name was Lisa, and she gave me her phone number. So sort of
Adriano, you're sleeping in the corridor of the hotel tonight. You don't mind, do you?
Adriano's like, I think I'll just stay here at Spearmint, mate. Don't worry about me. I'll check into a motel on the way back in the Ferrari. Anyway, meanwhile, this pair are nipping back to Como periodically to like see their families.
Don't fucking say a word. Listen here.
Yeah, on the flight.
Got him by the scruff of the neck. So coming out of the airport.
I can imagine Adriano. He's only been in Liverpool for like 3 weeks. He comes back and they barely recognise him.
Adriano, so what English words have you learned?
Free dance.
Yeah. Lap dance.
He's got his Polaroids.
Lovely little brunette.
So they make these trips back to Como. Obviously, like for Andy, he's excited to see his kids, and Adriano less excited about the trip home, having to go to fucking church on a Sunday. But every time they go back to Como, there are more animals in the house. So Andy says one time he pulls up, drives into the garage, and there's a camel in there. Which it's starting to get out of hand, I think.
Is it still wedged into the back of a Mini Cooper?
You cannot get a camel in a car, surely. It just has to walk slowly along the motorway. And just ride
Camels are their nature's car, to be fair. Aren't they?
Precisely.
Yeah. So are they planning on taking the whole menagerie to
the whole lot are coming. But Andy has no idea about the camels, so he comes back and he's like, oh, fuck's sake, another one. Got zebra, camels. It's basically a zoo. So apparently local families would on Saturdays, they would make the trip up to the house to go and look at the garden and see all the animals. Like it was a tourist attraction because they were such exotic animals.
Wasn't there a photo shoot that
Yeah.
like an Italian paper did?
Yeah, he said one day he came out of training in Everton and Diana rang him and was like, you need to get a copy of Corriere dello Sport, or Gazzetta dello Sport, the Italian newspaper. And he manages to get one. And on the front page, it's just Diana with all apparently they couldn't even fit all the animals in the picture. He's pretty annoyed by the animals thing. I think he's just like, what the hell are you doing? And how am I going to fit these guys into my hotel room? Adriano's not going to like this. Yeah. But Andy, to be fair, is up to far worse in Liverpool because he has begun an affair with the lovely Lisa. Remember the stripper who gave Adriano a first dance?
How could I forget?
How could you forget? So he said, after I'd had sex with Lisa once, I was addicted. She was wild, crazy, and horny. And apparently he tells his teammates, they're like, so what's she like, this bird? And he goes, she's beautiful, like Jordan. Because this is Jordan's pomp, I guess. This is mid-noughties.
So.
Yeah. And actually he expands on this description in his book. He says, Lisa reminded me of Jordan, or Katie Price as she's called now. She had those huge breasts, the wild personality, and the sexual appetite. See where he's coming from here. It's the big boobs. Yeah. But there is a slight spanner in the works coming. Because Diana is about to rock up in Liverpool at last. She's got the kids, she's got the animals, she's got Adriano's parents. You can imagine both Andy and Adriano being like, it's over. Just gutted. Who's more gutted to see their family? I think Adriano. Actually, Andy says he's initially really happy because he wants to see Isabella in purple. He wants to spend some time with his kids. He's actually really happy about this. Obviously less happy about the animals. Pretty quickly, though, he is going back into the arms of Lisa. So he carries on his affair, even when Diana moves to Liverpool. And actually, he then comes up with an ingenious plan. He tells Diana that he's got this injury he needs to recover from, and so he's got to sleep on his own in a hotel.
Right.
I mean, I'm pretty sure this house has multiple bedrooms. It's got room for a zebra and a camel.
What sort of injury requires you?
I don't think he even expands on it. He's just like, I'm injured. I'm going to need my own room.
she's got more on her plate anyway. She's trying to sort out getting a rhino loaded into a crate on a Boeing 747.
Land at John Lennon Airport. So he apparently she sort of accepts this excuse. So he just sets up in a hotel where he's sleeping regularly with Lisa, of course. He describes the scenes as like a porn set. You will be astonished to learn that Diana does grow suspicious of the fact that her husband is now living in a hotel. And she hires a private detective.
Where is Andy? He's supposed to be feeding the camels.
Was it a few things that Adriano let slip around the family dinner table, maybe?
You can imagine Adriano sort of Because Adriana only thinks in terms of strip clubs at this point. It's quite an adjustment then to just be thrown into a school in Liverpool. You're like, was that summer a dream? Diana,
His classmates definitely thought, there's just one kid in school that's just a liar.
yeah. You're like, no, I live with a footballer
Of course, you
and a
fucking
camel.
do, mate.
And in the summer, I was going to strip clubs every week.
Yeah, no, I drive a Ferrari.
I finger strippers all the time. Of course you do. I drunk drove a Ferrari back to my hotel room I share with a footballer. And then people meet his parents and they're like, your dad's a chef. What are you talking about? Anyway, Diana's suspicions grow and eventually she hires a private detective to work out. She knows, she probably thinks he's cheating or worse. So she's trying to find out what he's up to. And this private eye plants a tracker on Andy's car. At which point they can follow him everywhere, and they follow him to, at this point he's no longer using the hotel room, he's got a penthouse apartment that actually belongs to another player at Everton. Couldn't work out who it was, but apparently it's just lent to Andy whenever he wants to shag her. It's this penthouse apartment, and the private detective gets photos on the long lens through the window of them like shagging. So
wow, but it's penthouse, so he must be like in a building.
Yeah, so quite
across
high
the
up.
way. Yeah,
But I don't know how the private detectives got up there, but it's a smoking gun. He's fucked. And eventually Diana confronts him and is just like, I think she phones him and is just like, are you enjoying your time there? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, how's that fucking stripper? And he's like, oh God. Comes home to face the music and she's just got photos. So you can't deny that. Like, I was with Adriana the whole time. And so Diana packs up, takes the kids and leaves, and the camels. And that's basically it. She's barely on Merseyside. I think it's like 6 months.
yeah, wow.
Yeah, so pretty brutal. Like,
Pretty brutal for the animals as well. They're just getting adjusted to the new climate, and now
Yeah, are they back to Amsterdam? Back to
Como. They'd kept the house nitty. I get the impression Diana never really wanted to leave. Like, she liked it there. The animals liked it there. They can drink from the lake. But what I was wondering, and is never explained by Andy in his book, is what became of Adriano and his parents. Because presumably
they left as well.
Yeah, well, there's no mention of them after this point. So Adriana just, I'm going to stay. The parents are going back. He's like, yeah, I'm going to stay. But that's basically it for the family. So yeah, Diana and the kids go back, Adriana and the parents go back, and Andy is left in Liverpool on his own. You're probably wondering, again, how's it going on the pitch? We've literally not talked about football. Well, in that first season, when all this stuff had been going on, he makes a paltry 10 appearances, a lot of them off the bench. He does get 3 assists for Everton.
That's pretty good.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Like 3 assists. Like, yeah.
Yeah, 3 from 10. Most notable moment comes in the Merseyside derby in March 2006, when he is sent off for elbowing Xabi Alonso in the face. I've actually got a clip of it.
Meyde went in with his elbow high then. And there's another flashpoint in the derby. It's just a stupid challenge.
I love when he goes, just a stupid challenge. And then the ref tries to touch him and he's just like, get off me. It is a pretty dumb red. There's always a red in the Merseyside derby. Though.
Yeah. Do you think that would sort of endear him to the Everton fans doing that?
Yeah.
Although maybe it resulted in a catastrophic defeat.
I think, to be fair, his antics around Liverpool have endeared him more. I think people quite like
Yeah.
rumours start to spread of him, like, he's basically in strip clubs a lot, especially after Diana packs off.
This is when he gets his Shandy Andy nickname as well, isn't it? Possibly because he could only buy shandies for Adriano.
Yeah, that one's for Adriano. To go with his carvery.
Well, someone's got to drive home.
I still can't believe he let him drive a Ferrari as well.
So that first season at Everton doesn't really go to plan, and the next season is even worse. So, so early the following season, Andy has what can only be described as the week from hell. So one night midweek, him and Lisa go out to a bar in Liverpool, have a few drinks, and he takes it fairly easy because he's got a game coming up. But in the cab on the way back, Andy starts feeling completely out of it. He's really dizzy. Suddenly he starts coughing up blood. So they're kind of panicking. They get back to the house and he passes out. And Lisa calls an ambulance. And they basically think that he must have been spiked because, he hadn't drunk that much. Take him into hospital and do blood tests, but nothing really comes up. They think maybe it's GHB, which like doesn't come up in the blood test.
Right.
But he fortunately recovers and makes it into training the next day. And the story's already on the front page of the papers. So, he's going in and he's sort of expecting a bit of sympathy from his teammates, but nobody even mentions it.
Who the fuck are you?
Yeah. Yeah. Is it Alan? Or... yeah, nobody really mentions it until David Moyes calls him into his office. So Andy's really expecting, an arm around the shoulder, and David looks at him and he's like, "Andy, I heard you you had a wee bit of trouble last night." And he's like, "Yeah, fucking hell, like it was a nightmare, I think I got spiked, like I was coughing up blood, I passed out, I spent the night in hospital." And David looks at him and he's like, "So where did this happen, Andy?" He's like, "Oh, it was news bar." He's like, "Oh, so you're in a bar, Andy, 48 hours before a match? That contravenes your contract, Andy. I'm gonna have to give you a fine." So he gives Andy a 30 grand fine.
Jesus.
Because you're not allowed they had a rule that you're not allowed in a bar 48 hours before a match.
Oh, is that the cut-off? 48 hours?
48 hours. So
And that's a week's wages, right? 30 grand.
it's a week's wages. Yeah.
That's quite
money.
brutal.
Which it is brutal, yeah. I was also thinking, fining people a week's wages, like you hear about it a lot in football, that's a punishment. And is that legal? It's like, can you imagine any other line of work where, you turn up to work hungover and your boss is like, "All right, that'll be 2 weeks' wages."
Guess you're not paying your rent this month.
Yeah. Just be like, fuck off.
You were drinking 48 hours before work. Or bottomless brunch on Saturday morning. What time did that finish?
Why are you in there after 9 a.m?
Because you get fined 2 weeks' wages for like quite minor stuff.
Also, like, I mean, Premier League, you can sort of, if you're on 30 grand a week or more than that, like,
can wear it.
can probably wear it. But if you go down to like League Two, sort of a squad player in League Two, and you turn up a little bit hungover for training one night, it was your wife's birthday the night before, and that's like the manager slaps you with a 2-week wage fine. It's like it'd be like 750 quid.
I have to sell my car.
That's the house goal.
Yes. Sorry, love, the mini break.
Default on the mortgage payments.
We're not going to Tenerife this year, love. Sorry. I was 5 minutes late for training. Yeah, well,
Forgot to bring in a cake on my birthday.
well, let that be a lesson to both of you guys.
Yeah.
If you don't wear flip-flops in the shower.
Yeah, surely that's not illegal.
It's definitely a big slap in the
Illegal.
face when you got fucking spiked.
Yeah, it really is.
Had he been like on a bender or...
No, so he says that he'd had a couple of beers.
Yeah. And I for one believe it.
Yeah.
David Moyes, was he already not a fan at this point? Or?
Don't know. Yeah, he's definitely not a fan. He's played him 10 times. I don't think he's like totally disapproving yet, is he?
Yeah.
Does that come?
Well, it does get worse.
Oh, God.
It gets worse for Andy this week. So he's already pretty fucked off at getting spiked, but then getting a 30 grand fine, and it gets a lot worse. So 5 days later, he's playing in a testimonial at Goodison Park, which I think is as close as he gets to Goodison Park really at this stage. And his house gets broken into. So these thieves, they steal his Ferrari, they steal a Mini Cooper as well, and worst of all, they kidnap his beloved 7-month-old French Mastiff.
Wow.
I thought you were going to say camel.
Yeah, I mean, he'd probably thank him for that. But
Was this like the one dog
the
Diana
one-
left behind?
Yeah.
possibly, yeah. So he's distraught about this. He's tearing what's left of his hair out, and
Is he bald?
he's
Yeah,
getting
he is
getting
now.
a bit thin on top by this point, and he's just like, what am I going to do about this dog? When he receives a phone call. So it turns out that in the Ferrari, the thieves had found a phone which they assumed must belong to Andy, and decided to call the last number that he'd dialed to deliver their
Adriano?
Hello, news bar.
No, it wasn't. No, so it turns out that this phone was Andy's secret mobile that he used for contacting other women. 'Cause he's with Lisa at this point.
Oh, so this is an affair away from Lisa as
away
well.
from Lisa.
Oh, so
yeah.
he's just always cheating.
Yeah. So the dog kidnappers end up calling up this random shop assistant that Andy had shagged a few days before and delivering their ransom note for the dog. So she kind of panics and calls up Everton. So they they then have to call him into the office and be like, mate, just had a call from this girl who possibly shagged you a few days ago, and she's got a ransom note from some kidnappers. You've got your dog. They want $5,000, or they're going to use your dog for fighting.
Is that what they said?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a horrible threat.
Yeah, it is. So they say that Andy should deliver this $5,000 in cash to an Everton groundsman, who for some reason Andy doesn't suspect at all. He's just like, the groundsman was a lovely guy, and I knew that he'd help.
So how does he know the kidnappers?
Well, this is the question that Andy
Right.
doesn't seem to ever ask.
Do they like live in the same area?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that is so suspect.
Yeah. Andy,
Deliver it to a groundsman. His voice sounds quite similar to mine. Pay no mind.
Yeah, but Andy, he has full faith in this groundsman and delivers the cash, and he does get the dog back, which he's over the moon about. But he's still got his Ferrari missing, so he's stressing about that until a video pops up on YouTube of the dog kidnappers doing donuts with his Ferrari in a car park in Liverpool. We've got a clip of it actually.
It's like burnouts.
Doing burnouts in the car park. Yeah,
There's like
they're just
so much
they're just
smoke.
completely fucking his car.
At first, he thought it was an old clip of Adriano trying to drive him home from his bar.
He gets the Ferrari back in the end.
Does he?
Windscreen's been smashed in. But,
Okay, that's quite a good result.
Yeah.
And the tyres are completely
Yeah.
burned.
Anyway, back at Everton, things aren't going well. So Andy's hardly even making the squad at this point. One time he travels down to London to play West Ham, and then discovers that he's not even in the squad again. So he's really fucked off. He just leaves the stadium, gets a cab all the way back to Liverpool, still in his Everton tracksuit. And on Monday morning, he comes into training and, he's expecting a bollocking from David Moyes, but everyone just greets him as normal. It's just like, all right, Andy, how you doing? All the coaches as well. Just like, hey, how was your weekend? And
everyone greets us as normal. Just like, who are you?
Is he still here, that guy?
Do you work on the security team?
Can I sign something for you? Or
no, so he basically realises that nobody even noticed that he wasn't on the bus back to Liverpool after the game.
That's so much worse than the
Yeah,
bollocking,
it's
isn't
it
it?
is worse.
Because it's quite common that footballers do that and get, it's like a story in the press. Like, he left the stadium,
yeah,
they
like
get a bollocking.
Cristiano Ronaldo a
Yeah,
couple of years ago.
Tino Asprilla did it as well, I remember, and it was a big deal. Andy van der Weyden does it and no one even notices.
So shit.
You'd rather be bollocked.
Yeah. Just want to feel something. Yeah, by this point he's not getting on with his teammates either. So he's got a particular dislike for the captain, Phil Neville. So he thinks of Phil Neville as a bit of a snitch, a bit of a teacher's pet. He accuses him of dobbing him into David Moyes whenever he's been out on the town.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so this is an extract from Andy's book. He says, sometimes the assistant coach would call Phil to Moyes' office and I couldn't resist making comments. Off to bend over for the boss again, I'd shout across the room. Or are you going to take him in your mouth this time?
I think everyone else is just a bit like, fucking hell, all right, mate.
Jesus.
She's the captain.
Take him in your mouth. I was
Yeah.
expecting it to be a lot more subtle than that.
No, it's just ripping him.
I like that he's recounting the story in his book like he's like a great wit. Like,
Yeah. Well, he says in his book that none of the other players would dare say that to Phil, but they'd all laugh when he was out of the room.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which, yeah.
I can definitely see Phil Neville as a snitch.
Yeah, he does.
Him and Gary are both, I saw someone describe them as company men. You know what I mean? And so I think you can see
He's
that.
got real teacher's pet vibes.
Gaffer.
Show some fucking respect.
Yeah. Gaffer that Van der Meyde. He's out all night.
Yeah. He doesn't rate Phil's football either. So he says, to me, Neville wasn't just an annoying guy. He was also a terrible footballer. In the Dutch league, he wouldn't even make it into a top club. Hard work and kicking the ball blindly away, those were his only skills.
It's a grain of truth, a kernel of truth. But I think he would have made it in the Dutch
Yeah,
league.
the Dutch league famously worse quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Henderson's absolutely smashing it there. So sort of similar players, really.
Yeah.
Henderson's better.
I think Phil Neville was
He was decent at his
Good.
time.
But yeah,
Solid.
Like he said, he has a go at him because he worked hard.
Yeah, he just fucking worked hard.
Yeah.
Hard work and kicking the ball away does that.
Yeah.
That is kind of my perception of Phil
You
Neville.
got a few hundred caps for United, but have you ever been to News Bar? No.
Yeah, very different vibes, the two of them. You can see why they didn't get on.
Totally different vibes. Yeah.
He doesn't get on much better with David Moyes either. So they have this huge row after a game against Middlesbrough. So Andy hadn't played again. I think he'd been on the bench, but didn't come on. And Everton had this policy that after games, the players who hadn't played in the match would have to go out onto the pitch at Goodison and do a really grueling training session. But, you know, Andy was pissed off. He didn't want to do it. He got in the shower after the game. And as he gets out, David Moyes is waiting for him to like get him out for this session. And Andy tells him, fuck off, I'm going home. I came here to play during matches, not after them.
Fair.
And he's still like bollock naked from getting out of the shower. And as he bends over to pull up his pants, David Moyes grabs him by the throat, throttles him, and says, "You're getting out on the fucking training pitch now."
Fucking hell.
Jesus.
Moisey.
I didn't really
Yeah,
picture
so
Moyes
He's
either.
quite tough. Those bloodshot
Yeah,
eyes.
he does say that David apologised afterwards.
I remember him saying in his book he was like, a lawyer would have had a field day. I could have got like
Yeah,
some sort of payout.
yeah. Unsurprisingly, when the transfer window opens, Moyes decides it's time to send Andy out on loan. So he's got a deal lined up with Ipswich, but Andy refuses. So in the meantime, Lisa, his girlfriend, had got pregnant and given birth. And the baby had been born with like various difficulties. So it had been born 5 months earlier, but it was still in hospital. And Andy basically says that he's not going to Ipswich. He needs to stay in Liverpool to be close to the baby, which I think is fair enough.
Yeah.
But he says in his book that David Moyes replied to him, "Oh, it's always something with your kid, isn't it? Always problems." Which,
If your kid's in hospital,
yeah, that's
I almost
David
can't
Moyes
believe
comes
that.
quite badly out of this book.
I
I don't
think-
know. Obviously, that is Andy's side of the story. David Moyes might have a different take on
Yeah,
it.
at the beginning of the book, he's like super positive about Moyes. He's like, Moyes made a real effort with Adriano. He actually says that. He's like, he really made him feel welcome.
Yeah.
But then I guess, yeah. I mean, do you think David Moyes actually said those words?
I find it
Struggles.
hard to believe.
Yeah, I think he was probably like, it's always something with you.
Yeah. So his final season at Everton, Andy hardly plays really. He's training with the reserves. So as Everton are getting ready for a huge FA Cup replay against their hated rivals Liverpool, he's not really expecting to get onto the pitch, which is just as well because he's got bigger issues on his plate. So this is from his book. It says, "The day before the game, I had to train with the second team. I knew I wasn't in the team. But the night before the game, my dog was having babies. The whole night I was awake getting the babies out. I didn't sleep."
Just delivering puppies. Like 10
Being
puppies.
some sort of like canine midwife for these babies. But anyway, he gets into Everton the following morning, bleary-eyed, he's been up all night delivering pups. And David Moyes turns over his flip chart and there is Andy's name. He's on the bench against Liverpool, which is about as good as it gets for him. And at half-time of extra time, with the scores locked at 0-0, Moyes turns and beckons his one-time Dutch wonderkid and sends him on into the fray. And in the 118th minute, Andy whips the ball into the box where a teenage Dan Gosling turns it home.
We've got some footage.
Given away though by Liverpool. There's Jack Yelka leading the charge. In comes the cross and it drops to Gosling. Can he get his shot away? Unbelievably, the youngster has won the derby for Everton.
Good goal.
He's
It's a good goal.
Yeah,
Good goal from
Dan
Dan
Gosling.
Gosling.
he's got so much to do.
So we did a Twitter thread about Andy Meyde a couple of years ago, and somebody commented under that video describing it as a famous cross. Which
I mean, it's a famous goal.
is a famous goal. I think famous cross is slightly stretchy.
He leaves him quite a lot to do. Like, Gosling has to take the touch.
He has to take about 3 touches in the box, turns the defenders, and then scores.
I also enjoyed that the commentator didn't know his name. It just goes from Jack Yelka. Van der Meyde has the ball and they just stay silent. They're like, who?
A cross comes in. And he does say in his book I've never seen a stadium explode as much as on that evening in February 2009.
I believe that he's
Until-
never seen a stadium explode.
Because I played 50 professional matches.
So it's, until I left Liverpool, I was reminded of that one cross all over the city.
I can kind of believe that. It's not a very good cross.
It's not
He found
particularly-
his man.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, defender probably should have cleared it, to be honest.
All over the
but-
cities, he means in strip bars, all over the city.
News bar had it on repeat on the screen.
Yeah.
That's
Just like the idea of people stopping it. It's like, are you the guy who did the famous cross for Dan Gosling?
it's probably quite a famous goal. At the
Yeah, it
time.
was a famous goal.
Yeah, FA Cup extra time.
Yeah,
Liverpool.
against Liverpool. Yeah, famous for Dan Gosling anyway. Unfortunately, that is sort of the high point for Andy's Everton career, and at the end of the season, Everton decide to terminate his contract.
You sort of
He
think,
hasn't done
was
enough.
that going to be the moment that Moyes is like, let's kick and play?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Sort
not, and that's curtains for him at Goodison Park.
He does weirdly decide to stay in Liverpool, and for 6 months he's just unattached, just basically seshing constantly. So he says at this point he moves into an apartment in the city centre with his friend from the gym, dog breeder Tony.
Oh, here he is.
Here's Tony. Anyway, so him and Tony move into this apartment overlooking the entrance to one of the most popular clubs in the city. I don't think it's News Bar, but similar sort of vibe. And apparently you can see the queue to the club from their sofa. So they buy these really powerful binoculars so they can check the girls out and decide whether to go. But I mean, it's almost pointless because he says, we would just go every night anyway. It doesn't, whatever you saw in the binoculars, it's a yes. So they basically...
Did you see Adriano there every night? Just like,
Oh, fuck. Adriano, or Tony as he's known these days.
arguing with the bouncer with his fake ID.
He's got a copy of the law. Do you serve mead? Anyway, he says they just go every single night and they're boozing hard. At this point, Andy gets into cocaine for the first time. So, when he was playing, he said it was like, I always thought it was the worst thing in the world, but in order to keep myself going and go out every night, I sort of needed the lift from the coke, which is one way of approaching
Needed
things.
it. Just have a night in.
Yeah, you didn't have to do it. And then he says in the day, I was just in the gym all day sweating it out. So one of those weird cokehead guys. So it's 6 months just in Liverpool, no football, gym, coke, nightclubs, lot of shagging. Him and Tony bringing girls back to the apartment. He says,
Is the apartment just filled with rare dog breeds?
yeah, just the occasional litter they have to deliver. I can imagine actually saying we've got 11 puppies.
Yeah.
That's quite a good way to bring girls back. And a camel, weirdly. He says, I spent 50 grand just on going out in those 6 months, which, I mean, it's a fuckload of money. For a footballer, maybe not like insane money, but he says actually it was way cheaper than it could have been because I always preferred £5 lap dances. So he's not going, he'll go to News Bar and see the gang. Stop in for a drink, check how Adriano's doing.
50 grand is a lot to spend if you're getting £5 lap dances.
Yeah, I mean, it's 10,000.
10,000 lap dances in 6 months.
Him and Tony actually fall out soon after that because Tony's supposed to collect some money from a bloke who owes Andy money, possibly some sort of coke dealer, and he refuses and instead takes loads of Andy's stuff, and they fall out apparently.
Sad.
Gets a bit ugly.
Buy stuff.
Yeah.
Dogs.
Yeah,
Puppies.
dags. Yeah, I think dogs, clothes, don't know whatever else, coke. Yeah, it gets ugly. Anyway, at this point, Andy's like, "What the fuck am I doing with my life? I'm living with a dog breeder. I'm unemployed. I'm just shagging every night and doing coke. This is no way to live." And he decides, I'm going to go back to the Netherlands. And so he goes back to Amsterdam. He trains with Ajax for a bit. They let him. And then he gets the call from PSV.
Okay.
Ajax's hated rivals. The manager wants to sign him. And he's like, great, this is a proper club. I can restart my career. I think he's only about sort of 28, 29 at this point. So still plenty of time. But there is one snag.
28, 29, but seen enough.
Yeah, exactly.
£5
He's got
lap dances
the
for a...
body of a 50-year-old. Got the 1,000-yard stare of a man who spent too much time in News Bar. But there is one small snag in this transfer, which is the PSV fans are not happy because they consider him an Ajax ultra legend. And they learn that Andy has got an Ajax badge tattooed on his leg.
Right.
And so apparently he's at training one day at PSV, like, he's basically on a trial. And suddenly this gang of ultras turn up and they're like, get your kit off. And they want to see the tattoo, and so he has to get down to his underwear to prove to them that he doesn't. So actually, he did have an Ajax tattoo on one leg, and on the other leg, he got an Everton one, a bit prematurely. But during his 6 months...
Was it after that famous cross? He's like, I need to commemorate this. Get the date tattooed on as well.
In Roman numerals, like him and Dan Gosling embracing. Actually, I did notice in the video, Gosling doesn't even go to Andy to celebrate.
Doesn't know who he is. He thinks it's like, you know, that guy who slipped. That guy who slipped in and got on the Man United team photo in full gear. Who is that guy? Who's that balding guy?
Cheers, Alan. Anyway, during his 6 months in Liverpool with Tony, when he was dog breeding stuff, he also got really into tats, which is not a huge shock. And he'd ended up getting so many tats that he tattooed over the Ajax one on his leg. Right. You know those blokes you see sometimes, they're wearing shorts and it's just like their lower leg is just dark green.
Yeah.
It's just a mess, a soup of tats. So he got himself into that situation. So when the ultras go to look at his leg, he gets away with it. All they can see is a complete mess. Can just make out a bit of Dan Gosling's arm as he wheels away. So they let him off, and he gets his trial with PSV. Doesn't go very well. He plays one friendly and then gets injured, and so they pull out. But he does go on the famous tour of Brazil that pre-season, which is where he plays his one friendly. The highlight,
That's sort of why he joined, really.
all for the Recife
The strip clubs of Rio de Janeiro.
He does describe one funny tale from his trip to Brazil, so it's not all completely lost. So he says, I shared a room with Nordin Amrabat during the trip to Brazil, and we knew our teammate Balázs Zuzak had a thing for women with large breasts. So, pretending to be a hotel receptionist, I rang him and told him in a fake Brazilian accent that a blonde woman with, quote, big tits was waiting for him at the front desk. Completely believing me, Balázs replied, send her upstairs to my room. I leave the door open. We couldn't stop laughing.
Oh, I would love to get a recording of that call.
Hola, there's a woman with their big titties waiting for you. Yeah. I just love the way Balázs was like, send her up. Great. I'll leave the door open. I guess maybe for footballers that does happen. Yeah. Anyway, so then that's it for PSV, and then Andy's unattached, living in the Netherlands. Then he actually does get a surprise offer from none other than Tony Adams, who calls him up. And you get a call from Tony Adams, you'd be like, is that the Arsenal legend? Shit, maybe it's North London, or like, didn't he have that spell at Portsmouth? But actually, Tony at this point is managing a team in Azerbaijan. So Andy declines, turns the offer down.
Oh, really? I bet there's some good exotic animals.
Yeah, you think he would? I guess that's more Diana's passion, really.
So.
Apart from dogs. For Tony, it's like, they're good strip clubs. Can I get Coke? Yeah. Will they appreciate my famous crosses? So he turns it down. He does then play, he has a short stint playing a few games for this third tier side in the Netherlands, which it transpires they've been set up by the residents of a trailer park. So, good pedigree. But then that's it. At 31, he just packs it in and retires for good. So a strange career. He'd had about 150 appearances over the whole time.
Kind of all goes downhill from Ajax, really.
Yeah.
That's where it all went wrong.
It's weird to think he could play in like a semi-final of the Euros. And by all accounts was quite good for the Netherlands. And then it's just...
nothing.
Yeah.
150 caps, but, as many lap dances.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how do you measure a career, in lap dances terms? He has a bit of a career post-retirement. So the highlight of which until recently was the fact that he refereed the Lingerie World Cup in 2014.
En we gaan de teams aan je voorstellen. We beginnen met Spanje. Die hebben een prachtige aanvoerster waar het hele...
It is exactly as you'd expect it.
Audience exclusively of blokes.
Is that him reffing? Yeah. What sort of bloke goes to that? Like,
En dat betekent dat Nederland de eerste schot mag gaan nemen.
surely you...
I think Adriano is
His idea.
Yeah,
he's got tickets for every game.
He's the brains behind it. I just don't really, that thing, I get how in the sort of planning meeting they're like, what are blokes like? Football and lingerie. Just merge it. But like, who's paying money to go to that? See you at the next one. To be fair to Andy, after that, he then does a bit of reality TV. He falls in love with one of his reality co-stars, Melissa. They marry, and he's now got quite a successful YouTube show, which is like, it's like carpool karaoke, James Corden's thing.
Oof.
He interviews people in cars.
Okay. No singing involved.
No.
It's actually supposed to be quite good.
Has it got a lot of viewers? He's
Yeah,
making a living.
got a fair few. He interviewed Ronald Koeman
Okay, nice.
and
Yeah.
some random Dutch celebrities. I've
When's the
never heard of.
Adriano episode? That's what we all want.
Yeah, that was the reunion.
So yeah, here endeth the lesson. I don't. How do you reflect on someone like that? It's obviously the gut reaction is wasted talent.
Mm.
But in upshot terms, what a talent!
What a man.
Really
Yeah.
used it well, I think. Do
Yeah.
you think he's a bad guy?
It's a difficult one to say. I don't think he's a bad guy. Clearly, football wasn't always his
Priority.
main priority, and he enjoyed the finer things of life.
Yeah.
£5
lap dance.
The
finest
£5
things
lap
in life.
dances and drunken Ferrari drives with a 15-year-old.
Yeah. All right. Well, I really enjoyed him.
Yeah.
George, thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic debut.
Mm.
Almost as fantastic as Andy's debut. All right. George, thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Thanks, Zach.
Cheers.
If you enjoyed this, please do share it with your friends on WhatsApp and elsewhere. Tell your pals down Newsbar, and we will see you next time. Thanks a lot.